Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Christian Brindle. Welcome back to another episode of the Seven Figures or Bust podcast. I'm joined with a guest who needs no introduction, but I'm going to attempt to give him one anyway. I'm joined by a legend in the insurance space, as far as I'm concerned. I'm joined with Medicare Bob, Mr. Robert Bache, Bobby Bache, with AmeriLife. And Bobby is so gracious to take some time and kind of come on. He always shares so many things that people in his status and where people in his position don't really share. So I'm so excited for this conversation. I've been looking forward to it all week. Bobby, how's it going? How's it going? It's been a while since we've gotten to get together and do one of these.
I agree. I didn't know we were supposed to wear Snuggies. I could have got a Snuggie. I can get you a AmeriLife Snuggie, Christian. We got to do something like that, man. I'm just kidding. I'm good, man. I know you and I go a couple months without talking, and then when we do, it's always good to catch up, man, because this industry is so big. We're always all so busy and moving in our own lanes, but it seems
Yeah.
like it's always good to catch up and see how you're doing. How you doing, man? I've been seeing a lot of stuff online with you. I know man, I want to hear about what you've been up to. I know I see some of it, but I want to hear it from you. I saw some. Again, I sent you a message when you did the partnership about integrity. So I'd like to know more about what does that mean, right? Because I know
Yeah.
you didn't sell to integrity, but I think that's what people initially thought. So that's what I thought
Yes.
originally. So I'd like to
Yeah.
learn more about what you did there, and then also Glenn and you finally decided to partner together, which I feel like that was a no-brainer and that was going to happen over time. So Lead Heroes is getting into insurance, and they go hand in hand together. Leads, insurance. If you have leads, you get agents. You have agents and leads, you get policies, customers.
Yeah.
So, but I'd like to hear all about those. Those are two things I'd like to share with you, and then obviously maybe we can touch base about the CMS final ruling, the FCC lead ruling. We can talk about what's going on here at AmeriLife as well, and all that
Yeah.
stuff. So
Yeah,
yeah, it's always good to
absolutely.
catch up.
Absolutely. I mean, there's so much that I think we can get into today. I'll start though with, some of those questions you asked, and I think they were terrific questions. Yeah, so last year, the partnership announcement came out with Integrity. And yeah, I mean, I think the majority of people just assumed, right, that they acquired us. And I have to be careful with my words and kind of what I say because a lot of it is extremely confidential in terms of the details of the relationship. But one thing I do feel comfortable saying is people just assumed, I think, that we were acquired, but we weren't acquired. We're still 100% owner owned, for lack of a better term. So the business today is 100% owned by myself and Glenn, with our partnership and kind of coming together. So Glenn is the only person that's ever gotten equity in the company other than me. And yeah, I mean, our agreement with Integrity it was, without giving specifics, it was essentially giving us the opportunity to be given a lot of additional tools, a lot of different additional resources that we didn't have before to kind of help us grow. For me at the time, I felt like we had a majority of our contracts aligned with them anyway. So I was like, we don't have to change a whole lot in order for us to do this. It seemed like a very good thing for us. And there's definitely some very lucrative incentives that we were able to get from that. But yeah, you're right. They don't own us, and then they didn't purchase us. And I've never said that publicly before. So this is the
Oh,
first time
well, there you go.
that's the first time that's ever
Breaking
been cats out of the bag.
breaking with Medicare Bob. Christian Brindle did not sell his company. No, it sounds to me like so AmeriLife would do something similar, I think. Again, rumors, right? Which I'd love to actually. So there's the business side of what's happened, which I think it's probably all been good for you, sounds like, which is great.
Yeah.
But there's the personal side because you are someone online that everyone knows. So I want to hear some of the pros and cons because I saw some backlashing for you online. I also saw some huge support. So I want to talk about that. But it sounds to me, and again, I know being on the corporate side now, I understand agreements and stuff like that. So don't say anything that you can't say, but we do something similar where we call it a path to partnership. So we go, and if we have a good partner that may not have the EBITDA yet that they want to sell at, right, or partner with us at, we say, look, let's align your contracts. We'll give you some supports systems. And we call that like a contract acquisition to an extent. We might give them some upfront money. We might give them some upfront support. And then they align their contracts. And then we have like a plan of a target. Okay, hey, in 2 years, right? Because there's great groups that might be $1 million, but they're not ready for that acquisition yet because they think, hey, in 2 years, I could be at 3 million.
Right.
right?
Yeah.
So we're like, well, hey, whoa, let's get together here and give us a ROFR, like a right of first refusal. We'll pump you with support, meaning technology, money, stuff like contract lifts, all that stuff. And then in 2 years when you're ready, then we can formalize our partnership. So it sounds like what I heard on those deals is it's like, and again, didn't come from me or anything, but I heard it's something similar, but instead of instead of cash, it's like you get this level of stock payout in theory at some point, and you don't have to. I don't want you to get in trouble, so don't go. You don't have to go into detail. I think the big news there is technically, if you wanted to, can you share? Do you have a right of first refusal with that deal, or like if because like there's some groups that will purchase and we don't even move their contracts because like IFG, for example, pays so much money, like they did not have a profitable business model because the money that they're
Right.
paying. So we acquire someone and they have a contract with IFG and they're getting co-op support or something that we have no idea how they're getting those. I'm like, hey, leave your contract there, right? You can still come work with us and still keep your contracts because contracts are great, but at this point, it's not like we need that volume only,
Right.
right? It's more of an EBITDA play and packaging together the next deal. So if there's anything there you want to touch base on, or I know you probably can't a whole lot, but then I'd like to hear about you on the personal side. Everyone has an opinion and you put yourself out there,
Yeah.
right? And there's pros and cons to that. And so, how did you deal with some of the backlash and the support and how did that make you feel?
Yeah. It's a great question, honestly. Like, and nobody's asked me the question yet either. So like
Well, I went through
I'm
that, right, a little bit when I sold. So I understand, like everybody has an opinion. Even my
yeah.
closest friend in the industry, had an opinion and they really didn't even understand my deal. And they
You're
didn't
right.
understand
Right.
that, I'm, now VP of health at AmeriLife and I'm doing something I love to do. And I get to work with the best CEOs in the business because my main role now, for those that don't know, sorry, is VP of health now. So I work with Scotty Elliott and Brian Keevan. And once we acquire and partner with a company, which most of our deals are 51-49, so that partner that we acquire is still very vested in their business. Okay. Well, I'm their conduit to the mothership.
Hmm.
So I'm head of strategy. I have P&L oversight with them. So I'm kind of like their partner at that point. So I get to work with SMA, JSA, Gordon, Pinnacle, Precision, AMG, all these, half of distribution basically in the country, right?
Right. Right.
Their P&L management and their strategy. And so what's working, what's not working and stuff like that. So like I have a job now that I love and I get to work with people in the industry and no one knew that because I couldn't tell everybody, yeah, I'm on this 3-year path of I'm going to grow and scale my call center and then I'm going to get introduced into distribution. And then hopefully if I choose to and I keep doing a good job, maybe one day I get to even take a more of a leadership role at AmeriLife. But I
Yeah.
couldn't explain that 4 years ago, right? So people had opinions is my point. And it was tough for me to sometimes filter through that. But so I'm curious how you dealt with that.
Yeah. I think, you hit it right on the head when you said everybody has an opinion. Everybody has something to say, some of it positive, some of it not so much positive. And so for me, like what I noticed was there was 3 types of people. Everybody seemed to fall in one of the 3 camps. I think the first camp was people that are part of people that are part of that organization, right? Like people that are part of that alignment. Those people were stoked about it. Those people are supportive. They're, it's clapping. This is amazing. This is great. And I think you can put some people into that maybe, aren't part of that organization or aren't aligned, just people that are just one-man shows or just small agencies growing their business. And, we have a relationship and, they're happy. They're like, oh, that's great for you. That's great. That was the first camp. The second camp was didn't care. You know what I mean? Like, oh, that's cool. Maybe there's curiosity about what it means, but it is what it is, like don't really have a strong feeling one way or the other. And then there was the camp of, oh, you're a sellout. You sold out, PE is bad, this and that, like I heard all of that, and, I think there were people that I collaborated with and there are people that was friendly with and still still have no issues with any of those people, like it's kind of a one-sided thing on the people that did feel that way. But like that group of people, that demographic of people are like, okay, well, we're not collaborating anymore. We're not supporting your event anymore. We're not doing anything with you anymore. We're not doing videos anymore. And that just comes with the territory. I think anytime something like that happens, it ultimately is what it is. But I think I saw that. I think I could categorize everybody that I spoke to or interacted with about it, or I saw say something about it, in one of those three camps. I think the overwhelming feeling I got was positive, but there were some people that, were valuable relationships in my mind, that maybe those relationships are damaged because there's a perception that we got acquired. Obviously, I never said we got acquired. I didn't say one way or the other, but the perception was we got acquired, we're owned, we're part of the big machine now. And, if enemy of integrity, then I'm part of that enemy, was kind of the perception of it.
You and I had our first little beef a little bit.
Yeah.
You and I met each other at Medicare Con, not met each other. We met in my hotel, and we've been friends longer than Medicare Con last year, but whenever it was last year, a couple of years ago, I forget now as these years start running into each other. But I said to you, hey, I would love to work with you. And if you come across an opportunity that you want to start talking about partnering with somebody, I'm liking what I did, and I'd love to talk to you about it more. And you said, yeah, no problem.
Yeah.
I think at that point you were already down the road on what you ended up doing with integrity, which is great, no problem. But I was slated to speak at your event, and so was Dave Manaya, and we had some miscommunication where neither him or I could go, and for two different reasons, but legitimate reasons. Yeah. And I think right then and there is when you were getting some of that backlash, and so I think in your mind it went straight to, now that I'm integrity, you guys are AmeriLife, you guys can't come support me, which we talked, and that wasn't it. I'm a huge supporter of you, but I think that's why I asked you, because I think that you had some of that. I get it. Like, I think maybe, you're you kind of like had that fight or flight thing, like, and you're like, oh, base 2, fuck him, right? Like, right? Yeah. So, but no, it's an emotional journey. It's an emotional journey, 100%.
100%. And obviously, like in that situation, it was complete misunderstanding, miscommunication. But you're right, in that moment, because our announcement went out a week before the event, maybe less. I think it might have even been the week of the event. It was like the event started on a Friday and the announcement came out like on a Monday. So like it was all so close together. And in that situation, I mean, and honestly, like looking back on the situation, like it was 100% my fault. Because David, Dave reached out to me. David reached out to me. I just forgot that he reached out to me. It was just one of those things where, it was in the neck of everything, though, like you said, and the perception, like, the perception on my end was, now I'm perceived as I'm on this team. Yeah. Now we can't fuck with each other. But obviously it was 100% miscommunication, and I'm glad that it was. I'm really glad that it was, because that's obviously the last thing that I would ever want. But yeah, I think, it was a difficult time for me for sure, and I know there's people that come out with announcements with that organization, but probably with other organizations too, and they get the flack. You know what I mean? I see people now that are coming out with announcements over the last couple of months, and they kind of get into the fire a little bit publicly. It's like, everybody has something to say. Everybody has an opinion.
This video is brought to you by the 7 Figure Medicare Agent Summit. Guys, have you ever wanted to get around other professionals and the best of the best in the Medicare space if you're a Medicare agent? There's something to be said about networking and learning what other people are doing around the country, and they might just have some ideas that you may never have thought of before. It's also something to be said about learning from the best of the best. The most successful people in the insurance space collaborate, talk with others, and they have a mentality that we all are in this together and we share ideas and grow together. The 7 Figure Medicare Agent Summit is the premier event for Medicare agents. It is highly affordable. It has a great reputation of being some of the best content you're going to find at any event. There's so many events out there that are nothing but pitch fests, or half of the speakers are employees for the agency that host the event, and there's not really any real agency builders or very few that actually take the stage and speak. At the Seven Figure Medicare Agent Summit, you get nothing but the best of the best talent from all over the industry. It's not based on hierarchy. It's not based on anything like that. We all are coming together as Medicare agents to grow and learn and get better. You can get information on who the speakers are for this year's event and ticket prices down in the link of this description. We would love to see you at the Seven Figure Medicare Agent Summit.
Well, and let's be honest, we were part of that too, right? At some point, right? So
Yeah.
I think to end that part of the conversation, because I know we've got so much to go over, but here's my advice to every agent, every broker, everybody out there. We are all each other's biggest fan. Like you have to be. AmeriLife wants integrity to have as much success as possible. Do you know why? It's just like a house. If you have a nice house in a nice neighborhood, you want your houses in the neighborhood other houses to be kept up, because that keeps your value of your house.
Yeah.
Okay. If integrity doesn't do well, that's the biggest comparable that AmeriLife has, and vice versa. Now, are we competitive? Heck yes, we're competitive. Do I like our value prop? And does integrity like? Yes. But at the end of the day, I want integrity to be as successful as possible, because that's my neighbor. And that's the only comparable that is around our size, and vice versa. And it's just like when, Jagger and I have been good friends for a long time. We had competing call centers across the street from each other. Okay. As a friend, I want to be successful at the big level. On the day-to-day, I want to beat his ass, right? I want to compete with him, right? And,
Yep.
and he wants to do that too. But at the end of the day, there's enough business. Think about it. I mean, there's how many people on Medicare? 65 million.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
between integrity and AmeriLife, maybe less than 5 million of those enroll with either an integrity or an AmeriLife entity.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. That's so crazy to think about.
I mean, like, go ahead, get 40 million. I'll take 25, whatever, right? Like, we're all going to do fine. So, but then as business owners, you do have to look at we could argue private equity has been good or bad. There's been technology advancements that if it wasn't for private equity, we would also be wearing shirts and ties and sitting at a desk, old school, doing 40 apps a year. Because if there's not investment into technology, then there wouldn't be platforms now that agents, the barrier of entry now is way easier than it was. When I first started, you too, Christian, which I always have so much respect for you, because like me, we've sold before. And I always say that, dude, paper apps for every carrier.
Yep.
Looking at doctors and printed manuals that were already outdated. We just take, so there's been a lot of positives too. Now, I think the negative's been on the lead side, and I think the FCC and CMS are looking to clean that up. So, which I think we could probably, want to segue to that a little bit?
Yeah, please,
Yeah,
because I'm fascinated to get your opinion on these. Like, I've had so many conversations on both of those, proposal rule changes on the FCC side, but you're so probably closer to the action of it than I am about what's actually going on. I think I'd be fascinated to hear your take on both of them.
Yeah, so let's start with the FCC, right? So we can all agree that the buyer's experience needs to improve. I don't think there's a single agent out there that would disagree with that. And so that's what triggered this, a year and a half ago when the new rules came out for last year. And I can share with you those rules from just last year have made a huge impact. If you notice, the Joe Namath commercial was on less. It wasn't as misleading. Okay. Also, for us, we have every agent we work with, they're going to use a marketing piece that has to go through our compliance department, and it gets what's called an SMID number. I spoke at MedicareCon last year about getting marketing, at least stuff has to get approved now, right? CMS is doing that. So CMS, they can't regulate the lead vendors. So they're doing their best to regulate us so that we self-regulate the lead vendors. And we've reacted to that well. FCC is talking about a 1-to-1 ratio as well. That's going to is going to pass January of next year. So what that is a lot of these big box call centers, okay, or even whoever, because even if you're getting in-home appointments and stuff, as an agent, you may not realize what's actually happening in the back end to generate that lead.
Right.
A lot of those leads are what's called co-registered leads. So what that is let's say you're a senior and you're looking up getting a reverse mortgage. Okay. So you go to whatever reverse mortgage company, you fill out a request for a quote. And then when you hit submit on the lead form, it has like a box usually automatically checked that says you're authorizing our affiliates and partners to call you regarding extended services or some type of disclosure like that. So then when the senior hits submit, that's a co-registration lead, because now that person technically registered for that reverse mortgage quote. And then if you click the terms and conditions in that little box that was automatically checked, it says, okay, final expense is going to reach out to you, Medicare insurance is going to reach out to you, car insurance is going to reach out to you, burial services are going to reach out to you, home health care service. Like there's 20 services that then reach out to these people.
Yep.
So these leads are very cheap. So that lead vendor will then sell that lead to all those parties for like 90 cents to $3. All right.
Yeah.
And then what some people do in this business is they have their own agents call, right? Or they hire someone like Lead Heroes or call centers overseas to call that data, warm transfer it over to an agent. Well, what that's done is it's created a bad experience for seniors. They're getting a bunch of phone calls, and then add that to everything else that people do where, and remember, like my phone rings. If I don't recognize the number, I have no obligation to answer it. But like the senior generation is a little bit different. When their phone rings, they will still answer it. I mean, I'll be at my mother-in-law's who's 72 years old for Sunday dinner, and her house phone rings during dinner, and she feels obligated. Like when it rings, if I'm sitting with you, Christian, and my phone rings and we're at dinner, I'm not answering my phone. I have no obligation to them.
Yeah,
the senior
same.
still feels obligated to get up and go answer the phone, even though she knows it's spam, right?
Yep, she does. Yeah.
And so it just created a bad experience. So what the FCC is saying is starting January 1st, no more co-registration leads. You have to have a 1-to-1 ratio. Okay. Which means if you go for a reverse mortgage, you then have to only a reverse mortgage company can get that data to call. If you go for final expense, only that company can call you. So that right there is going to help. And what CMS is going to help. So if I'm an agent, okay, what that means for me is, and I mentioned this last year at Medicare Con, is I would start investigating if you're doing that process now. There's 2 ways to mitigate that process. So if you're a call center, you're an agent that's taking those calls, there's 2 ways to mitigate. One is teach yourself lead self-gen. It's all doable, right?
Yep.
Facebook is very user-friendly. Like, I mean, you just create a business.facebook account, create a business page, and I promise you there's free videos online to learn it. If you have a Go High Level program, by the way, shout out to Eric Ferreira for partnering as well. Good for him. Happy he's taking that step too. But like you can build marketing funnels now if you spend a month on the weekends figuring it out and willing to put the hours in. So learn how to do some self-gen or hire a marketing firm to generate you that lead. So it's a 1-to-1, right? And the other thing is if you're a call center or you're a telesales agent working from home, what's already happening is you're seeing that the lead vendors are getting away from more transfers and they're doing more digital click to calls. So more Facebook click to call, more Google Bing click to call. We've already transferred that 100% at Senior Healthcare Direct. What we've seen is still manageable. Our CPL increases a little bit, our CPA increased a little bit, but it wasn't detrimental to the business.
Yeah.
Right. So that business is still open. So then that segues me to, well, what are we doing about the CMS rules as far as the proposed rule with agent compensation and stuff? So what's the point of that? And I know a lot of agents, Danielle, Angela, Galen, a lot of people were in DC this week, which is great. Well, what CMS has, the good news about CMS is Integrity and AmeriLife, Senior Market Sales, some of the big box call centers, it actually, so the good part about consolidation is now it's easy for those 4 or 5 big groups to get together. Think about this. Brokers and agencies have very little influence in DC for the last 50 years. What we've had NAIB, which is a lot of agents aren't really in it and it's not properly funded. And then really the carriers have been representing us in our industry. And 99% of the time, an agent and a carrier's goals align, but there's that times where they're not, right? So agents have had limited representation, and especially distribution itself. Well, now what's happened over the last few months is there's a work stream now amongst all those big parties that are actually on phone calls together and strategizing. You know, we all agree things need to get better, but how do we do that, right? And so in DC, it's good to have the voice. So like we actually have like a lobbyist group that has input from Integrity and AmeriLife, the big box call centers, and they're doing a work stream to make sure that we're represented in the conversation of improving the process. So that's good. Now, what are they trying to tackle? They're trying to they don't want consumers to be persuaded to choose a certain plan because of agent compensation.
Yeah.
That's one of the things that they're tackling. So, you know, they're looking at how to tackle that. So I think a couple things. My perspective with CMS is I would say, and I hope this happens, let's defer this for a year, because a couple things that I brought up was, one, you guys, we've done a lot of changes already. It'd be like, look, I've gained some weight in this job because I travel a lot, right? It'd be like, okay, I ate good today and I'm expecting to wake up skinny tomorrow. But that's not how it works, right? I got to eat well.
Yeah.
I got to exercise for 30, 60, 90, 120 days, and then I'll see results. It's the same thing with changing. And CMS made all these marketing changes, and I think they were good. But we've only had one AEP with those changes. Like, let's give it some time for people to adopt those changes, and let's measure the results of those changes before you go and change more stuff. Plus, the FCC, who does have the legal right to regulate lead vendors, with that new co-registration rule, will already help what CMS is trying to solve for. And then when it comes to steering based on compensation, look, WellCare pays the most admin fee of any carrier, and United Healthcare pays the lowest out of the big six. And United Healthcare agents write way more United Healthcare than they do WellCare. So if you think that agent compensation is the only thing that is driving enrollment, you know, and that you want to standardize it, that's fine. I could get behind that if we want to standardize the admin fee, as long as it's a good amount. But if your argument is we're scared agents are being persuaded to sell other plans, I would just use WellCare as a use case of WellCare pays the most. If your position was accurate, WellCare would be the biggest carrier in the country.
Yeah, it's a great point. It's so true.
So we'll see what happens, right? We're all kind of waiting and seeing. I think, what is it, February 29th right now? So hopefully in 2 months we should get some more information. A win for us, I think, would be to defer any agent compensation changes to see, you know, and really work with CMS. Like, we didn't go to stop them from doing what they want to do to make the buyer's experience better. Our perspective was, let's work together. Like, don't go work by yourself and be secluded and think that, because CMS doesn't understand our business. They really don't. I mean, I've been in distribution now away from owning my own agency for almost 2 years, and I'm still learning new stuff about this business. Like, there's just so many layers to it. But yeah, so that's interesting on the CMS stuff. Again, I would mitigate by doing inbound phone calls, investigating in some lead gen, and then, yeah, I would get involved, you know, Integrity and AmeriLife and Senior Market Sales. You know, we have templates and stuff. If you go for us, and again, this is not, if you're happy, well, we have a website, I'm sure Integrity does too, where you can go and you can write a letter or something like that, and it gives you your local senator's name and congressman and stuff. And yeah, that matters. Like, if you're in this business, like, you should try to be involved in directing the change, you know, make sure that we're not going to be excluded from the change.
Yeah. So. Yeah. Agreed. And, one thing I thought was really interesting was, like, you know, having conversations probably in the last month or so. And what I was hearing was exactly what you were saying, that Integrity, AmeriLife, Senior Market Sales, all these humongous organizations in our space were collaborating and working together and trying to find ways to, you know, essentially work through this thing together and work with CMS on this stuff and communicate with CMS and just kind of those things. And I was like, that's the way that's good for our industry. You know, I think that's good for our industry when AmeriLife, Integrity, SMS, they're all working together towards a common goal. And that's the goal for the agent, you know, the common best case scenario for the agent.
Well, and I think what's changed in the industry over the last 10 years is transparency amongst everything.
Yeah.
You know, let's be honest. I think our generation of agent, and I'm older than you, but I'm going to put myself in your generation of agent, is very different than your dad's generation of agent and the industry. So what's changed, right? A couple things. One, the transparency level, you know, just how we've all been friends and competitors at the same time. Before that, it was complete opposite. And if people have been in this industry for a long time, like, if you're new to this industry, the level of access, the level of knowledge, the level of transparency that exists today is unbelievably better than it was 15 years ago. Okay. 15 years ago, it was an MLM, secret stuff. Agents can't move. They have no rights. I'm going to hold your contracts no matter what. And it was just, it was just like old, I don't want to say mob like mentality, but like it kind of was like old school, like, this is our business, nobody come in. And I think with you, Justin Brock, myself, a lot of people, we meet each other and it's like, wait, what are you doing? I'm doing this. Oh man, that's really cool. Can I do that too? Sure. Hey, this is what I'm doing that's working. Like, because again, it goes back to what I said. There's 65 million. Like, we have the mindset of that we can't help everybody.
Yeah.
Like, we still can't help everybody. And so there's not, what you eat has nothing to do with me. Right. And so, I mean, and it's, I think there's a lot more collaboration with social media. There's transparency. And so I think there's a lot of good that's happened over the last 15 years. I think the industry's I think it's a better place to work now than it might've been 30 years ago. Where somebody has think about the old school mentality. Like, some of the people that made it was because they were the first one to get the UHC contract ever. And if you wanted that contract, you had to kiss the ring, and that was it. Right. Or if I got this Humana contract and I'm the only one that has it. And if you want it, you got to kiss the ring. Right. It's not like that anymore. Like, it's, you got to earn your right to get to certain conversations by producing, but you have access to somebody who's having those conversations and you're not being secluded. You can participate. And so I think that's pretty cool. Like, I think it's a good lot more transparency now than there used to be.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. I mean, you mentioned 15 years ago. I think about myself, even when I started 10 years ago, 11 years ago, it was such a different model. I remember a situation with my dad. Like, before I got into the business, he had signed a Molina contract under a guy that had one of the exclusive contracts. Like you're saying, he had one of like the early contracts. This guy, he's like one of these old school FMO guys. And I come into the business and like, I'm in a few years, I'm starting to learn more and more. And I'm talking to my dad, and my dad's like, we're stuck, our contract's stuck under this guy. And the relationship was horrible between my dad and this guy. They didn't like each other to the standpoint, to the point that my dad's like, we can't get this contract because we're stuck. We can't get it anywhere but here. And I remember at the time feeling like, that is so crazy to me. Like, that is so bizarre. And it wasn't until like a few years later, I want to say it was like 2016, 17, like the carrier dissolved those old contracts, but like it took them that long to really kind of dig out of these old deals that some older brokers found themselves in from 10 years prior, or something like that. And it's a totally different world. And I don't think agents realize that. Like, agents complain a lot about, I have to wait 3 months to move my contracts. If I can't get a release, I can't get a release. I need a self-release. But compared to where we were even 10 years ago, certainly 15 years ago, it's a different world. Like, the agent has a lot more control over what they do than they did.
I agree. I mean, look, now, if you want to move your contract, most of the months you put in your intent to transfer.
Yeah.
Right. That didn't exist 5 years ago. Did not exist.
Yeah.
I mean, you had to get that release or wait 12 months, and you couldn't sell that product for some of the carriers. So I think that's good. And look, I will share this with you. When I was an agent and then an agency owner, I was like, oh, FMOs, there is another side to it. Like, we do a lot of work. Like, I didn't realize how much work goes into it, like for the carriers. This is why the carriers are, if you look at their letters to CMS, they're on our side when it comes to distribution, because we recruit, we hire, we train, we support, and we do it all on commission based. So think about that for a second. A carrier would not be able to offer the level of support that we offer without increasing their overhead by hiring people to do it.
Yeah.
We all make money per sale. That's it. If we don't get a sale, they don't have to pay us. That's a great deal for them.
Yeah.
So, I mean, and so it really is, now I, am trying to get, and we're moving there, but going from owning your own agency is like, driving a speedboat. And when you join a AmeriLife, I'm riding in the Titanic, but I'm in a position where I can drive direction and change. It just takes, something that might have taken 3 months might take a year sometimes, and not because of ill intent, just because it's bigger. And so, like, I think the demand on everybody for agents is, bring value to me, bring value, train me on carrier products, train me on the business side of Medicare, train me how to sell this product, train me how to get in front of people, train me how to do leads, train me, like there should be a high demand as an agent, which is why I think agency growers like you and Justin and Josh, and you guys have success in that model because you guys have the wholesale contract, and then you guys have done this before. Same thing with me. So it's like, look, I can show you how to do this if you want to put the work in. And so I think that's an advantage, and I think there's more of those people, and that's the cool thing too. Like from my perspective at AmeriLife is we're acquiring all this talent, and so I get to learn like how SMA runs their field organization or JSA, and then I can take that and translate that into another agency that we work with. Not any of their secrets or anything, but just like best practices. And so, and then you're accumulating, like when we have our kickoff, and I'm sure you guys have events too, like I'm looking at the room and I'm like, okay, like stud,
Yes.
right? It's like, okay, yeah, like, and I think you and I are similar to where we like to learn. So, I like to listen to them and see like, tell me, have you been successful? And then I try to learn something from them every single time. But like I get to, I have Zoom calls with the leaders. I have the 15 best CEOs, 15 of the best CEOs in the business that I get to work with. And so, and I get to help, and also like they get to help me learn too. So it goes kind of both ways, which to me is a lot of fun. It's like I get, and I'm sure you're having fun too. And so what's your goal for the next few years, man? Like, so, my goal here is, I want to keep growing at AmeriLife and working with these partners and growing our value to the agents and to the consumer and to our investors. And I need to get better at golf. So trying to do that.
That's two of us.
And then obviously being a great father and husband, but that's, I do a pretty good job of balancing that. But how about you, man? How's your family? What's your goal for you and now that, tell me about you and Glenn's partnership. Like, how did that come about?
So, and it's funny, like, I think you and I talked about it years before it happened too. Like, I remember being there in Florida and hanging out together and talking about it, and talking about, not that it was even on the radar at that point, but talking about that the conversations had happened, right, about it. We've talked about it a lot over the years. It was really me that was hesitant at the beginning, then I didn't want to do it. I had fear of giving up control of the business. I'm so used to being a gunslinger, as right? Like you went through it probably even 100x more than I did, right? In this situation, and I'm only 2 months in, right, with the merger, but like I'm so used to just making decisions on the fly, being a gunslinger. Like my philosophy has always been, I would rather make a quick decision and make a mistake on a lot of things than think about it for like a month and then, and I might still make a mistake, whereas I could have tried like 4 things over the course of that month. And so that's just how I'm used to doing things.
I looked at it the same way. Like that's an entrepreneur mindset. Like, look, I'm going to fail fast, and failing is financing the future me.
Yeah.
Right. And so, and you're right. I definitely have different work streams that take longer than, the analogy I use, from riding in a speedboat to riding in the Titanic.
Yeah.
It just takes longer to turn. And also, for you right now, if something doesn't work, no one's fearing losing their job.
Yeah.
In the corporate world, people are you and I, it's like we don't feel a failure because we know like, okay, we'll learn from it. We'll get better. We'll do better. But, we come from an entrepreneur background. If you're somebody who went to school, got your MBA, paid your dues for 5 years, and now you're in a leadership role and you get to make decisions, if you make the wrong 1 or 2, like that could cost them their $200,000 paying job, which to them is their goal, right?
Yeah,
so
it can be fatal. It can be fatal. I think so. To kind of answer your question about kind of how it came about, we had conversations in the past, but never too serious. And then, when this whole CMS thing started, bubble. It was actually before the proposal that we started talking about it again. But I think we were just seeing a trend, right? Of, it seems like at this point, yearly CMS final rules, proposals, and it's really tightening. And, I think the biggest thing for us that we both kind of had in the back of our minds was you remember the part in the last CMS final rule where they mentioned agents not being able to buy leads from vendors?
Yep.
And, they ultimately said, we're not going to move forward on this proposal, but we reserve the right to come back to it in the future. That type of change could be significant on not only Glenn's business, but our business. Like I know how to generate leads. I know how to make our own leads, but we have a slew of downline agents that can't. And no matter how much I teach them, they're going to struggle. Now there's some that are going to be able to take what I can teach them and they're going to run with it and they're going to do really well. But it's a big change. And so, we started talking about it more seriously because of the regulations coming out. And the more we talked about it, the more I started to realize that I thought it made more and more sense. I thought, for one, our business is lonely, right? It's hard to be basically gunslinging completely alone sometimes. And Glenn and I are great friends. We've been great friends for a lot of years now. We've worked really well together. Like, even though our companies were totally different companies before, we did all kinds of projects together, promotions together, helped each other grow. And, I'd been a customer of the leads for my own agency for a lot of years. And I believed in them. And, so that ultimately started the conversation. And so, we started having conversation. It took about a couple of months once we really started talking about it to really get all the details ironed out. And then,
So how do you do that? So share what you're like. Look, people look to you because they identify your journey. They identify with your journey. I truly believe that. There's a lot of agents out there that aspire to go from agent to agency owner to a partnership and stuff like that. So what does that look like? Like, and don't share anything you don't want to share, but like, so the details, like you and Glenn get together and say, yeah, we want to partner. How do you do that? Do one of you come up with cash? Do you evaluate your companies and say, look, let's do a stock swap? And if you do that, who says who's worth what? Did you get outsourced to a company to evaluate you guys? Like, do you mind sharing that? Like, I think more as a learning.
Not at all.
Else. Like, how do you do that? Because maybe there's two agents that are in the same situation. They go, hey, look, maybe it's not a lead vendor, but it's two agents. Let's partner. Well, how do we decide what's fair?
Yeah. And, when we first started having the conversation, it's like, and I started wrapping my mind around it. I'm like, okay, maybe this could be possible. Let's talk about it. I started to realize how complicated that whole conversation becomes, because of everything you just said, right? Like, how do you determine the value of everything? How do you, so ultimately what we ended up doing, we had a million conversations, a lot of back and forth. We both, had lawyers that were helping talk us through things and representations and things like that. And ultimately, what I would tell somebody if you're watching this, the best thing I would recommend, and Bobby, you might have some extra insight on this, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, but like what I would tell an agent is probably the best thing to do if you're trying to merge with somebody is I'll tell you what I recommend and I'll tell you what we did, because might not be the same thing. But I think the best thing to do is evaluate your business, have it valuated. And if it's two insurance agencies, it's a lot easier to determine the value than it is an insurance agency and a marketing company.
How do you do that? Really quick on the insurance. Who did you guys go to get the valuation? So
we actually didn't do evaluation. So like I looking back on it, I'm happy with everything the way it turned out. I think, I'm happy with the future and the growth and kind of our trajectory. But like, for me, like I know Glenn really well, I know his business really well. But like for a lot of you that might be listening to this, that might go through a similar kind of situation, I think it's really helpful. And there's a lot of companies out there. I'm sure AmeriLife probably works with some organizations that their professional business, evaluators. Integrity has some they work with. If we had done that, I probably would have gone through one of the ones Integrity works with, but we didn't do that. What we ended up doing was we exchanged all financial documents with each other and each other's lawyers, P&Ls, bank statements, tax returns, things like that, and kind of just looking and trying to determine the value. And ultimately what we found out was Lead Heroes actually did more revenue in 2023 than my company did. But what we determined was my company value-wise was, of course, much more valuable because mine's an agency, right? My multiples on my EBITDA are way higher than what his could be at a marketing company. And so, what we ended up deciding, and I think I'm not saying it was the best thing, and anybody that's watching this, I'm not saying you should do exactly what we did, but we ended up just doing 50-50 on the whole thing because the way I was looking at it was our company's valued it more. His company brings in more revenue currently, but I believe if we're both equally incentivized together, we can help each other grow each side of the business. And I think the tools and the resources and everything that they bring to the table can really help us grow and scale. Like we have now an internal, unlimited lead generation source. Like if we have
bought a capability for you and your agents.
Yeah.
Like hopefully it's that capability actually increases your value of your business too. So and vice versa. So yeah, and then you guys are 50-50. So like you said, now are you guys having weekly meetings, daily meetings? Are you guys do you guys have a 3-month, 6-month strategy, a 2-year strategy, a 4 years? Not that you have to share those strategies, but it's only been 2 months, right? So I know there's still probably a lot of learning going, but so you guys both have equal interest in the business to make it grow. What if you guys disagree?
Yeah. So we thought of that, and we have on certain things so far.
You can call me. I can be the veto vote. You know what I'm saying? I can help you guys.
I think that's actually a good idea. Actually, I would feel more comfortable with you being the tiebreaker than a majority of anybody else. But we put something into our contract. So we had the lawyers kind of go back and forth with each other and work out an agreement, an operating agreement, a contract for us to both sign. And essentially what we put in the contract is if we have a disagreement, we bring in a third party mediator, like somebody that can be the tiebreaker, just like you said. And, and that could be a lot of different people. It could be a lawyer. It could be
that's for the big stuff. Like you guys are going to have small disagreements that you guys just have to get in a room and support your case for and hug each other afterwards and let's roll. Right.
Yeah.
So it's different when you go, like you said, from one person and being a gunslinger to, and the 50-50. So did you guys do a stock swap, or did he have to come to the table with cash, or you, or?
No. So we didn't do any cash. So the way that we did it was my company, my agency is an S corp. So we really went down the rabbit hole on this. We're trying to figure out the best way to structure this. And ultimately what we found out that we felt like the easiest solution right now, and we might change it in years to come, but for right now, my company being an S corp, there really are 5 companies involved. There's my agency, there's Lead Heroes, there's Hire Heroes, which is the virtual assistant company, separate business. There's 7 Figure Medicare Summit LLC, which is our event business now, because we separated it into its own company. And then there's 7 Figure Medicare Training LLC, which is our online courses and consulting company and everything like that. So there were 5 businesses we were dealing with. So 4 of the 5 are LLCs. My company is an S corp. So what we ended up doing was having my company as the S corp own all the other LLCs. So it'd be the parent company, have them be.
That's your holdco, like the parent company.
Yeah. And then on my agency, so with it being the holding company, him and I owning 50-50. So we own 50-50 of the agency, and then the agency owns all the other businesses.
Well, I think it's exciting. I think that's a great partnership. I think you're both gaining capabilities. I think you guys are both going to bring value to each other. And like you said, you're protecting your business from really anything as far as the marketing guidelines go, because you can work with Glenn directly and you're adding an expertise. And if you can, we all know, if you can like I said, generate leads, you have no problem recruiting agents and then getting customers. So congrats, man. Congrats to you and Glenn. I hope that I know it's going to work out. And over some bourbon, I'll be happy to be a mediator if you guys need someone to come in and split the tie. And whoever buys me better bourbon, I'll just side with them. Did Glenn tell you about Mario? Did I already talk to you about when we played Mario Kart?
No. Wait, with Glenn?
Yeah, Glenn came by.
He left that part out of the story. I have no I didn't hear about this at all.
Dude, I have a picture that I will not show publicly, but we were at my house and we were playing Mario Kart and oh no, it was Smash Brothers. Maybe it was Smash Brothers, one of the two
Okay.
games. And yeah, we had
Original Smash Brothers or newer Smash Brothers?
yeah, it's the newer one. It's Nintendo Switch. So,
Okay.
but it was fun. He was good at Smash Brothers. I think Brian Lubin was with us and my son, and I think we're all just talking crazy shit to each other. We never grow up. My son's 13 now, by the way, and our perfect Friday nights are exactly the same. Like, except I drink. Like, right. So
Yeah.
it's like we're playing Madden and talking shit, right? We're playing Mario Kart. We're playing 2K, FIFA, whatever. So yeah, my wife's just like, and then my 11-year-old too is getting into it. So it's like she has 3 kids that she has to raise. But all right,
That's
last
hilarious.
question. NBA right now. We're getting close to the playoffs. I know you're an
Yes.
NBA fan. I went to the Bulls game the other night. They actually lost to the Pistons. The Pistons got their 9th win, which was horrible.
Ninth win.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on the NBA this year?
Oh my gosh. I think Boston looks really good. Really good. I think Denver looks really good, but I think they're coasting. I don't think they're taking the regular season super seriously, but I think they look really good. I think the Clippers look really good. If I had to put money on it today, I would probably bet one of those 3 wins. I wanted to think Milwaukee could have a better season. They just can kind of a mess this year. I just don't know if there's enough time for them to get it together.
Yeah, I thought Dame would be an easier transition than it's been.
Yeah, me too.
I would have thought the skill sets really complement each other. Like I really thought that was going to be a really big pickup for Milwaukee. And it still might have some time, but I mean, switching a coach mid-season and stuff, and Doc really hasn't won since he was in Boston, and Ray Allen, Paul Pierce, and Kevin Garnett. I mean, and Rondo and Perkins. I mean, he had a good squad. I mean, I'm sure Doc's a fine coach, but yeah, I thought that transition. Joker's unreal to me. Like he's just my role model. I feel like he's drinking beer right before the game.
Yeah.
Dad bod God, and just you look at his numbers, and he's got 30, 30, and 30 or something. Like, he's crazy. Luka's the same way.
People.
Luka's crazy.
I love Luka.
This isn't going to go very far, but he's got that LeBron, like I control the game, my speed type of deal. It's just a much slower speed. But yeah, I thought Phoenix would be better. They haven't been healthy. I still wouldn't want to play Phoenix in the playoffs, but I'm going to be honest with you. And Kevin Garnett doesn't win. I mean, he won in Golden State with the best team ever.
Yeah, with a team,
the best team ever.
With a team that won a championship 2 years before and was 1 game away from a championship the year before and best regular season ever.
And Draymond Green got suspended, if you remember, and LeBron went off the next game, right? So, and I love LeBron. I'm glad he got that ring. But and Kyrie had a crazy shot for them to win. So, like, really, I mean, he went to the best team, and then that's how he won. But he went to Brooklyn, didn't win.
Yeah.
And Booker's one of my favorite players. So
I like Booker.
I like Booker a lot. Yeah, so I'd like Phoenix to make a run. I'm not as high as you are in the Clippers. Again, I just haven't. They just don't. Something's going to happen. They don't stay healthy long enough. But they have talent.
Kawhi's going to get hurt. I mean, that's usually what happens. Kawhi gets hurt, and Kawhi is the most important player on the team.
Agreed.
Yeah, so
he's unguardable, and he guards the other team very well. And then I love Boston. I'm a big Jason Tatum fan. I saw him in summer league, and I was like, that dude's different. But yeah, I agree. I think Denver, Boston, could. I mean, I still don't want to play in Milwaukee, right? I mean, Giannis is a problem. But Philly's out of it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's Boston. I'll go Boston. I'm going to change it up a little bit. I'm going to go Boston, Milwaukee, Denver, and Phoenix to be the 4 that I think have if Phoenix can get healthy, they're big 3, but
that's a good 4. That's a good 4, I think.
Jamal's healthy though. Denver's deep still, man. They're good. Denver's good. And you're right. I think they're like Kansas City, kind of like chucking along. Like it's hard to mentally go back to back to back all the time to big playoff runs. At some point, game 42 really doesn't matter if you're fine. Right.
Yeah.
So
I think my
go ahead, sorry.
Oh, I was just gonna say I think my preferred finals is Denver and Boston. Like I would like to watch that series probably more than any other that I can think of.
Who's Boston center right now? They still have Al Horford? No, they got
Porzingis.
Oh yeah. No, he plays forward, doesn't he? They got
Maybe.
Robert, the rebounder. They got Robert.
Robert Williams. Is that him?
Yeah. No, Boston. Yeah, I would love to see Boston and Denver. That'd be good. Yeah, that'd be tough. That'd be good. And healthy. I want them to be healthy. I think the NBA, it really sucks when injuries have an impact on the playoffs.
It's the worst. It's the worst. Hey, I want to be respectful of your time. I appreciate you and always being willing to, to share things that other people aren't, I've always told people, I'm like, Bobby's the big homie, you know what I mean? He's a big brother, and I appreciate you. And, I love doing these with you. Anytime you ever want to, if you have a message you want to get out, if I can help with that, I'm always happy to, do a video. Not that you need me to get a message out, but, I appreciate you. Thank you for being you. And thanks for everything you shared as always.
Thanks, man. Congratulate on your success. And you guys are just starting. So good luck to you and Glenn, man. You guys are going to kill it.
Thank you, brother. Guys, thanks you, by the way, the viewer, if you're watching this all the way to the end, you're the real MVP. If you like this video, like, comment, subscribe, and we'll be back with another episode soon. Thanks, everybody.